I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, a CIA officer, retired whistleblower, wrote this book from the Company of Shadows. Excellent book. It came out at the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, about that time frame. Everything you'd want to know about the deep state, the shadow government, the goings on that people do not understand or realize. This is the writer of this book is, of course, Kevin Shipp. I'm kind of giving it away. He is also an expert in counterintelligence, an expert in classification, also to give people clearances. He was an expert in counterintelligence. He protected the CIA director, his boss at one point. High clearance guy. Hello, Kevin Shipp. Thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
The president has been talking about all the spying, spies in his campaign, spies overseas. Now we find out they used a phony black ledger, supposedly dossier on Paul Manafort to get warrants. Awful. The FBI was told it was bogus. Awful.
Yep.
But that's not the big story. The big story is the abuse starting, and we'll just start with Admiral Mike Rogers at the NSA blowing the whistle to President Trump. Was there just a little bit of NSA 702, that's the section of FISA 702, abuse of finding out everything you want to know about any American you want? Was there just a little of that or a lot of that?
There was a lot of it. It is clear that the Obama administration used the NSA massive database on Americans to illegally unmask the names of his political opponents. And the administration did this by illegally using what we're referring to, NSA 702 queries. And this goes all the way back to 2012. So the spying started way back then, not just in 2016, where it continued.
What you're talking about, the spying started in 2012, and what you hear from experts that the 702s is a section of under FISA where if you ask for information about somebody, it's well documented. In the last interview, you brought up the fact that they thought Hillary was going to win, and boom, she lost. Did they care about whether or not that their names were involved in getting information about people before the election? Did they care about that?
You better believe they care about that, because now it looks like they unmasked thousands of names, specifically National Security Advisor Susan Rice, and unbelievably, UN Ambassador Samantha Powers used thousands of NSA 702s, and these are derived from Patriot Act Section 215, thousands of queries to spy on political opponents. And here's why. 702 queries do not have to show probable cause, and that's why they use them. Now, of course, they're quaking in their boots. This is a huge violation of Title 18 USC Code, and they're terrified.
Well, at the time, though, they thought Hillary was going to win. That was my point.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the prevailing argument is that, they wouldn't do that because they would be so well documented that they did it. They didn't care, did they? They thought Hillary was in. I mean, they were going to cheat her in. Project Veritas, Bob Kramer, all the times at the White House. They had the whole cheating thing in 2016. They thought they were going to cheat her in just like they cheated past Bernie Sanders. Is that right?
That is exactly right, Greg. They were convinced absolutely, as was most of the world, that Hillary was going to become the president of the United States. So they were doing this thinking that they were assisting Hillary Clinton in getting elected, protecting Barack Obama. They were absolutely convinced Hillary would be elected and there would be no problem with them engaging in this illegal activity because it wouldn't have been an issue. Sadly for them, Trump was elected, and it is a huge issue.
Then, when Trump was elected, what happened then? Did they just stop? Did they just stop doing this? What happened after Trump was elected? Or what happened after Trump was elected?
Oh, goodness. And I mean, this is so vast in the criminal activity that happened here. Now we understand that CIA Director John Brennan and DNI James Clapper circumvented U.S. law by obtaining surveillance information on Trump from foreign intelligence organizations. That would be members of the Five Eyes, definitely British GCHQ and MI6, other members of the Five Eyes foreign intelligence services, and now it appears that Italian intelligence was involved as well. And amazingly or interestingly, after the story broke, the head of British GCHQ resigned the next day. This is an international scandal, and in essence, Trump had global intelligence trying to stop him.
When you say global intelligence, isn't there a section in the law that allows our allies to use the NSA?
There is.
Did that
Yes.
happen?
It allows our allies, in the case of British GCHQ, it allows our allies to use NSA. It also allows our allies to provide intelligence that NSA can't collect because it involves U.S. citizens and domestically in the United States. So in this case, what happened was the CIA and went to British GCHQ and had them do the spying on the unmaskings, and then they sent that information back to the Obama administration, Brennan and others, and they used foreign information against Trump to get around the U.S. law regarding spying on U.S. citizens.
Wait. So the foreigners used their own database, or the foreigners were able to tap the NSA?
Well, this is what I think occurred, and many think occurred, that the GCHQ came into NSA, worked with NSA to direct surveillance on these American citizens. So NSA could make the excuse that this didn't come from them; it came from British intelligence. And there is a hero in this story, and he's gone into quiet. I think he's a man of honor, and that's Mike Rogers, who, seeing this abuse of intelligence and the use of British GCHQ, and it appears in NSA headquarters, Mike Rogers went and had a secret meeting with Donald Trump and alerted him to the fact that he was being spied on illegally, and being the former director or the existing director of the NSA at the time, he issued internal memorandums ordering NSA employees to stop unmaskings using this information. So Mike Rogers is a hero. I hope someday he's recognized, perhaps with a Medal of Freedom or something. He was the hero that exposed this to Trump in the very beginning, and he was subsequently fired from his position. He did this risking his career. He was fired by the Obama administration with the help of the DOJ just after his meeting with Trump.
That is outrageous.
Yes.
Wait, let me get this straight. The Brennan had MI6 go to the NSA and dig through any information they wanted under Section 702, and then pretend they wanted it for themselves, and then went ahead and ricocheted it back to the Obama administration, so people like Samantha Powers and everybody else, Valerie Jarrett, whoever, could unmask people.
That's exactly right. They obtained this information with the help of GCHQ, excuse me, and then they sent the information to the Obama administration, specifically to National Security Advisor Susan Rice and, incredibly, UN Ambassador Samantha Powers. What in the world is UN Ambassador Powers doing unmasking the names of Americans for surveillance? That's a question that needs to be answered, and I hope Durham is investigating that. So they provided the information to them, and they used thousands of NSA 702 queries to engage in spying on their political opponents. And Samantha Powers did this just before she left office. I'm sure thinking, nothing's going to happen to me because it's clear that Hillary's going to be elected. Hillary wasn't elected.
How do you know this? Do your sources tell you this has just been reported? Or, I mean, this is like new information.
Yeah, this comes from a good source.
So one of your intelligence, let's call it that. An intelligence source says, "Oh, here's how they did it." Isn't that what the real problem? The real problem was, and you said this in your last interview, I'll bring it up again, that they thought Hillary was going to win. So who cares if somebody knows that I'm looking at somebody? If she's going to be president, it's covered over. So did they go in full panic mode when President Trump was elected?
Without a doubt. And you remember, if just before the inaugural speech, CNN came out with a piece, what happens if Donald Trump is assassinated? Just before he was sworn into office, the war would begin, and essentially they brought out their so-called insurance policy, which was referred to by Peter Strzok in his love notes to Agent Lisa Page, who was a DOJ attorney. He spoke about if Trump gets elected, they have an insurance policy. Well, that was the purpose of what they called the quote-unquote dossier, a false piece of garbage directed directly at Trump to try to take him down. the FBI and the CIA feared that if this full story comes out, no doubt, their powers are going to be restricted, and people in the FBI and the CIA could go to jail. They're terrified of that, and that's why we see all of the
wait, they're terrified of the dossier, using the phony dossier, or they're terrified. I mean,
both.
There's so many crimes here. I just my head was going to explode. They're terrified of the dossier. They're terrified of the abuse of the NSA internally, domestically, and subcontracting. You're telling me that they subcontracted out spying on a duly elected president to other spy agencies?
Yeah, these were illegal contracts. Let me read what the FISA court accused the NSA of doing. This was the current FISA Court Chief Judge Rosemary Collier. She ruled this in April 16, 2017. Quote, the FBI had engaged in political spying going back to 2012. The FBI allowed 4 unauthorized FBI contractors to illegally access the NSA database and get NSA 702 query information. The FISA court accused the NSA of, quote, an institutional lack of candor. Now, that's a D.C. term for lying.
I'm sorry. Are they 4 contractors? That's just that. So we have it in writing that foreign contractors, foreign spy agencies.
Well, they were unauthorized FBI contractors, is the way that she put it. And I hope they're investigating exactly who those contractors were or are.
That's a stunning revelation. And why hasn't Fox or anybody else gone into it? Here is the real story. So yeah, they had physical. Although there's a huge story, but part of the huge story is the abuse of already constituted databases.
That is absolutely correct, and that what has been going on now, and that is what Barr is investigating, and that's why Brennan, Clapper, and others are so terrified about what's coming.
This Operation Hammer, which is the super secret program that Admiral Mike Rogers didn't bother to tell the president about. You've done some work on that. Is this a real story? Is this a real way they were going after the president and his campaign, and then later his administration? Is this a real way they were doing Operation Hammer with this with Dennis Montgomery?
Well, let me give you some background on this. It's important. Some journalists are covering up the source of the Hammer story, and that's Dennis Montgomery himself. Any news outlet that left out Dennis Montgomery's criminal and con man background, any news outlet would have killed the story immediately if they left out the sole source, Dennis Montgomery. And that's what these journalists are doing. I'll give you an example. There's a 2010 Playboy investigation. They consulted with several high-level government officials and others. And the story is titled, quote, The Man Who Conned the Pentagon. And his software was later reported to have been an elaborate hoax. And it is elaborate. It's taken me almost 2 weeks to unravel the whole thing. And in this particular article, it says this: Montgomery's former lawyer, Michael J. Flynn, called him a, quote, con artist and a habitual liar engaged in fraud. Then Michael Flynn, this is his attorney. The closest person to someone is their attorney in a court case, especially of this magnitude. Michael Flynn went on to say, quote, the Justice Department is trying to cover this up. Mr. Flynn said, quote, if this unravels all of the evidence, all of the phony terror alerts, and all the embarrassment comes up publicly too. The government knew this technology was bogus, but these guys got paid millions for it. Then, and then let's get into the book by James Risen, which was completely vetted, and Risen consulted with senior government officials in his piece and others. So it's very well documented. In his book, using Montgomery as a case study of government corruption and fraud, waste, and abuse, Risen states this, quote, Montgomery was the maestro behind what many current and former U.S. officials and others familiar with the case now believe was one of the most elaborate and dangerous hoaxes in American history, unquote. Montgomery.
Wait, is that talking about Operation Hammer?
Yes. Well, it's talking about Dennis Montgomery personally and the Hammer. Yes.
And did they say there's 600 million pages of documents and 47 hard drives? And that was all sealed in a court case in 2007. You sent me some documents. I looked at it. Did anybody ever see what exactly he was turning over to the FBI, the 47 hard drives? Anybody ever look at that information?
I'll get into that in a moment. Yes, and it was also found out that the information on those supposed classified hard drives was not classified at all. It was stuff that was drummed up by Montgomery himself.
How do you know that?
I know that from the research I conducted and in the court cases and statements like just made in the above references and journalists. So if you go back into the court cases, and I've got, my goodness, I think 7 or 8 of them. In one of the court cases, it states that the FBI, on the behalf of Baker, went into Montgomery's house and took possession of his hard drives, etc., because Montgomery had been saying it was all classified. It was a super secret program. And if Montgomery had done that, then he violated his secrecy agreement. Well, they went in, they captured all the information and found out, and this is in the court record, found out that the information was not classified. It was the same thing that he showed NSA experts in 2015. Was not classified at all. And Montgomery has used that statement to keep people from seeing his information, knowing that if they did, they'd reach the same conclusion, that it was false. Now, this Montgomery versus Risen, Montgomery sued Risen for defamation. He lost. Risen won 2016. A federal court dismissed his lawsuit. And then a second time in November of 2017, the United States Court of Appeals of District of Columbia dismissed it again. So it was dismissed twice, because Montgomery could not provide any information showing that Risen was not correct.
What did he say about him?
What's that?
What did Risen say about Montgomery?
He basically, he said Montgomery is a prime example. That's why he devoted a whole chapter. Montgomery is a prime example of contractors that are frauds that bilk the U.S. government to the tune of millions of our tax dollars. And when it turns out that they're completely fraudulent because they know that's where the money is.
And you said NSA people looked at these hard drives, looked at some of this stuff?
Yes.
Who was that?
Well, I did a program recently with Dave Janda. And on that, I need to correct a record. On a recent program with Dave Janda did with Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe regarding the hammer, Janda made several misrepresentations specifically about me, and that's why I want to correct the record. After playing a craftily edited video, he referred to me as, quote unquote, people are saying, the rest of the interview, making false statements about me personally and things I never said. And I'm getting to the answer to your question here. It's my opinion, just my opinion, that Janda duped Bill and Kirk into following his questioning, leading them to agree with this position.
Bill and Kirk are former NSA, top NSA people. Kirk Wiebe, Bill Binney.
Right.
They're real guys with real credentials.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Bill and Kirk are a friend of mine.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't think they would do this intentionally. Janda left out important documented evidence about Dennis Montgomery, as we talked about above. He left out his current criminal charge for bank fraud for passing $1 million of fake checks in casinos, evidence that he's a con man, and evidence of him committing a massive fraud. Janda left that completely out of the interview. And as I said, any journalist that was doing a true investigation would bring this out instead of deleting it from the program.
It would die right there.
Yeah, it would die right there. And I don't think any respectful news media would allow that person to continue writing.
So what about Wiebe and Binney? What happened? Are they part of the people that may have looked at this stuff?
They were, and I have the documents regarding that. Janda left this important piece of evidence out because he had to, because it brings down the whole story. But Bill made an amazing, shocking statement on the program. I don't know if he was prompted to do that or what was behind it, but Bill said this, quote, "We examined firsthand information by Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Me, Kirk Wiebe, and Thomas Drake looked at it. We could see hacking in the data in banks. Either you have to do surveillance or you have to hack into the banks." Now I have located and I have this on my program, the actual document where these NSA experts were brought in. In this case, it would be Thomas Drake, who I have a tremendous respect for as a true whistleblower, and Kirk Wiebe. This is the result of their analysis of Dennis Montgomery and his 47 hard drive information.
This is Operation Hammer.
This is Operation Hammer.
Okay.
Thomas Drake, NSA whistleblower extraordinaire, who really almost risked prison to come out. Thomas Drake said this, "Brian, good morning. Kirk Wiebe and I are providing you a summary attached of our data and information analysis of alleged, quote unquote, key data designed to prove the source's case. We have found that he is a complete and total fraud. All he has done is provide you with readily available lists of email addresses, names, phone numbers of both individuals and businesses, and a lot of framed up information, data and code, but no proof in caps but no proof of whence they came, and a whole lot of faked and made up analysis. So Drake says there's no proof of where Montgomery got this stuff, and there was a whole lot of, quote, faked and made up documents and analysis. This was the result of the NSA experts' investigation into Dennis Montgomery and his so-called hammer. And this is the note that they wrote that completely contradicts what Bill just said, and that's stunning to me.
Did Kirk Wiebe realize he was involved in looking at this? I mean,
this is just
how could you forget? Oh wow, this is a total fraud.
Yeah, in an official document to the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, you wouldn't forget that, especially after doing a long-term analysis of this stuff. You just don't forget it. So I just don't understand. Following this program with Dave Janda, Kirk sent me a note, which was also puzzling. Kirk said this: Kevin, there is no way for us to know whether Dennis ran Hammer or any other program, as we have not seen direct evidence. That said, and the key fact, and this is what Janda sent them, that said, and the key fact that makes us believe he deserves a listen is Negroponte order gagging him based on national security. In other words, invoking the state secrets privilege. So here Kirk says that they haven't seen any evidence. Kirk was involved in this investigation back in, I think, 2015 with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. So Janda sent them the state secrets privilege and says, well, this pretty much seals it up. I have the court document of the state secrets privilege. If you read it clearly, it has nothing to do with the hammer, and they actually spell out in points every single reason why the privilege was invoked. I'm an expert on the state secrets privilege, as a lot of people know, and it's in my book. And there is no evidence that the state secrets privilege was used to conceal the hammer in this court document. None.
So I want to get into why. I mean, this is I've been heard about this for a few years. Okay, and why are they propelling this obviously bogus story with a very a guy who's been in multiple court documents being listed a fraudster or untrue or a liar or whatever you want to call it? I mean, he doesn't have a good reputation. Why are they propelling this story when the real story, we're back to that, is the abuse of the NSA under Section 702 to get everything, every dirt on everybody, and then using foreign or subcontractors or contractors or foreign spy agencies to also do it after the election of Donald Trump? Why would they propel this story and not go after the real story?
Greg, that is what is very puzzling to me. Why would they push this so hard, especially now? And it is diverting attention away from the true surveillance scandal, and that's the 702s and the NSA spying and the counterintelligence operation against Trump. They are pushing this story strongly, and my concern is it's taking people's attention off the real story, and that is the actual abuse of 702s. Why would Dave Janda do this? I don't know. You know, it's really shocking to me, but I have no idea why he's doing this.
Well, other people have also done it too. There's been some reporters, somebody named Mary Fanning. This is a Sarah Carter story originally, was it not? Did she do something on this?
No, she did. She did a report on Hannity on this,
and then she dropped it. I've never seen her. I haven't seen her mention it in a year and a half, 2 years. I've heard her mention the 702 abuse. So
yeah, and I think she's an awesome reporter. She worked for Circa News when she broke this story on the so-called hammer on Sean Hannity. Circa was closed down, I guess, for financial reasons. So she was hired by Hannity to be one of his journalists, and she's a
smart person. She's a good reporter.
Oh, extremely smart person.
But I don't hear her bringing this hammer story up.
No, all of the evidence was she said was on her Circa site, which no longer exists. And if you go to her website, you can't find the hammer anywhere. There's some beautiful.
Stop. Regardless, what you found out is it's not a real story.
No, it's not a real story. She's a tremendous journalist, and I think was reporting what she'd been told. But I think we haven't heard from her about that, and I think she's moved on to the real scandal, which she reports so well, and that's a 702 abuse, the FISA warrants, and others. And she's doing a bang up job. As a matter of fact, I'd recommend people read her recent article because it's outstanding.
How would you characterize this hammer story relative to the 702? Story, the actual spying abuse using government servers, computers, and hardware to look into people. How would you characterize the hammer story to the 702 story?
with the evidence I've seen, the Hammer story is a fraud and it was a hoax. And clearly, Dennis Montgomery is a brilliant and elaborate con man. The story, that's why I looked at this 3 years ago and said, oh, God, no, no way, this is bogus. And had to come back to it recently. I spent 2 weeks researching this to come up with that conclusion. The Hammer is a fraud, and Dennis Montgomery is a brilliant con man.
And what's not a fraud is this 702 thing.
That is absolutely right.
This is could this be some real jail time for people? I mean, now we know that is president, so he controls the NSA. So all the unmasking, all the data requests, all that stuff is available. Yes. And they better have a good reason for why they did it.
Yes.
And then you can see this pattern where after he gets elected, they freak.
Yeah.
And they subcontract it out.
Yeah, illegal subcontractors, and I really want to find out what that's all about, so the FBI could spy and abuse these 702s. That is huge. It's one of the most vast and massive violations of the Constitution and Title 18 U.S. Code criminal law.
Would you say this is the biggest espionage story in history?
This is the biggest espionage story in Western history, without a doubt.
Why?
Because we have the FBI at senior levels, the CIA at senior levels, spying first on an incumbent, on a political candidate, then on a president, and worse than that, using other spy agencies in foreign countries, using foreign intelligence to provide information against Obama's enemies and now against Donald Trump. That makes this. Never been anything like this. This is huge, and if we don't address this and expose this now, it will happen again.
Jail time. The Barr came out and said when it came to them, this hoax, the Russian collusion, he said that wasn't treason. What about this? What about the abuse of 702s? Is this treason and using foreign spy agencies?
Yeah, yes, and the what Barr is referring to, it doesn't reach the level of treason, but it does reach the level of sedition, which is a serious charge with decades of years in prison. So even though it wasn't treason, it's still a very serious breach of Title 18 criminal law. So
that's what he meant by that. That's what he meant by this wasn't treason because it's a sedition. It's more sedition, which still could get you decades in prison.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
And what? Go ahead.
Now the 702s, and especially Obama, using that to attack his opponents or go after his political opponents, using the abuse of NSA 702s. Is that treason? Treason is a very high bar. I think that's going to be a tough one, but I think sedition is there. I think multiple espionage violations in Title 18 USC are there. These people will go to prison. And Greg, ultimately, this leads to Barack Hussein Obama. And we only can hope that these people will break away from the swamp and move in that direction, because he was not only witting of the program, he was directing it using his national security advisor, UN ambassador. That's serious. That is serious information. The treason bar versus the sedition bar is that's where kind of the line is. To do that could be, and this is just my opinion, it could be treason.
No doubt, though, Obama had to know all the way to the top. Obama,
absolutely, yeah. There's no doubt about it. He received, and I used to deliver this. He received the presidential daily brief from the CIA every single day, and instructs text messages. He advised Page that the White House was watching this closely. In other words, they were directing it. So Obama knew about it, at least in the presidential daily brief. And it was clear from the Strzok Page text messages that Obama was directing it. This leads directly to him.
Woo. And what about, we haven't talked about Hillary Clinton. All these people committed all these felonies. I mean, all these, and what are they doing? They're doing it to destroy Trump, but they did it to cover up Hillary Clinton's private server. And her, people died. There was one Iranian that went through that server and they died. The door was wide open. There was zero security on it. I mean, I bet you your fortheloveoffreedom.net has security. Not hers, not a State Department, not a Secretary of State server. Was that part of the scam? Do you think it was unprotected? Was it too stupid to be stupid that it was unprotected?
It was either incredibly stupid regarding her position and the emails that she was sending, some of which were top secret. It was either incredibly stupid or done intentionally, and I tend to agree with the latter. It was done intentionally. I think it had to do with conversations on the dossier. I think it had to do with conversations about trying to get her in office, and very possibly illegal things regarding the Clinton Foundation, which we now know was a massive international fraud, charity fraud in and of itself. So once she was not elected, they all got running scared and produced this false dossier. And the bizarre thing about this false dossier, Greg, as you know, I'm sure Hillary Clinton paid $10 million, and that's what we know of, sent through the DNC, laundered by Clinton's law firm Perkins Coie, paid to Fusion GPS, which had direct connections to the FBI, who hired former MI6 agent Christopher Steele to gather anti-Trump information. And here it is, from Russian intelligence. Talk about collusion. And then they brought that dossier back to a willing John Brennan, who disseminated it as intelligence, and he was the center focus of this and started this whole soft coup.
And then we have, on top of that, how they were laying the groundwork, though. Where did the 702 abuse fit in? So we know about the dossier. We know they used it for fraudulent applications. I think Comey signed one, Sally Yates signed one, Rosenstein signed one, and McCabe signed one.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
How did the 702, why were they using the 702 information? What was the reason why they were getting all this information about people before and after Trump was elected? Why? How did that fit in?
One, they were collecting it to use against the opponents of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and the illegal activity there is huge. So they know they did that. They know it was illegal, and as we mentioned earlier, if Hillary was elected, they didn't think any of them were going to be held accountable. That was not the case. So to cover for once Trump was elected, to cover for the fact that they knew he was going to investigate these criminal abuses of the 702s. That's when Hillary Clinton started with the DNC, with foreign intelligence, the political operation that resulted in this false dossier.
So you're saying the trigger, they already had done all the 702 stuff before.
Yes.
So they had already gotten all this illegally using, and there were names on it. The people who asked for it, their names were on it. So they panicked. This is why they used anything they could, the dossier.
Exactly, precisely.
So the real motivation for the dossier is to cover up the crimes they did at the NSA.
That is correct.
That is stunning. That is unbelievable.
The corruption is it's hard to get your mind around it. It's incredible.
Wow, that's a bomb. You know what? I've never heard anybody say it that way. I've never really seen the story framed that way. The motivation for the dossier. The motivation for the dossier was the 702s, all the illegal 702 abuse of the NSA.
Yeah, the insurance policy. If Trump was elected, they knew that all this criminal activity would come out, and it would be a huge scandal. And that's where they came up with the operational movement towards producing this dossier, which again came straight from Russian intelligence against Donald Trump. But the dossier was brought out to try to unseat Trump so that he would never investigate the gross abuses of these 702 NSA queries.
Oh, man. That's... Wow. The dossier was to cover up the abuse of spying using the National Security Administration.
Yes.
That's a story. Wow. That's unbelievable. That's enough for right now. I wanted to talk about your Patriot account. The reason why I bring this up, folks, I don't get paid for this. I don't care. I'm going to try to help Kevin Shipp because, they took away your pension. They tried to poison you and your family. They tried to undermine you in every way, shape possible. You live in a secret location off the grid somewhere in the southeast United States. But you do have a Patreon account where you do an intelligence briefing every week. Tell me about that and tell me about what you have coming up.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Every week at 7 p.m., that's a Thursdays, every week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, I do a full hour called the Intelligence Assessment, where we get into things like this. The last program I did on Patreon was about the Hammer system and the evidence that I had dug up about it. And viewers can see that presentation. It's about an hour on the Hammer and Dennis Montgomery in detail on my Patreon channel, and that's patreon.com/Kevin underscore Shipp. We did an hour on the Hammer this last program. We're going to do another hour this coming Thursday.
Have you reached out to Weeby and Benny? You have. I'm sure you have. I think you said that they emailed you. Are you? Did you reach out to them and say, hey, Kurt, you're with Drake saying that this is crap. What are you doing? Did you reach out to them? I mean, I can't. How do you forget that?
I don't know. Yes, I did reach out to them, professional courtesy, and called them both. Unfortunately, they both weren't at the phone, so I left a message just saying, basically, I've got some conflicting evidence regarding what you guys said, and I think you may want to comment on that. So I'd like to have you on the show to comment.
So you're inviting them on to say, hey, let's clear the air. What you're doing is you're correcting the record. People need to know that America needs to know the truth about what happened.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I advised them both that I was doing a program in these calls and asked if they would like to make a comment. Unfortunately, I never heard back from them. I did get a message from Bill Binney. So I'm going to call him back before next program.
And Benny and Weeby are real guys, credentialed, bona fide, fantastic sources, patriots. They're good guys,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. That's what's mind-boggling. Absolutely. And I believe they still are. That's why I want to give them the opportunity to come on and comment about this.
You don't want people to be chasing a false narrative because the stakes because the stakes are so high. You want people, and the 702 story. Wow, I mean, Kevin, they did the dossier. They panicked into the dossier and the spying with the FISA court because they were on record. They were on record dozens, hundreds, who knows how many times with the NSA getting information, dirt on people through our own intelligence agencies. They freaked out.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's what a story. So your Patreon account, you're doing a different something new every week. That's on Sunday. You can see it live. You can also get the tape version of it. Or do you do it live, or do you just get the tape version of it? You just get the tape version.
The intelligence assessment on Thursdays is live stream. That's a live broadcast,
and then you record it and then you post it.
Yes. Well, we post it live. It's a live stream, and then, then I have other programs on current events that are pre-taped and then posted.
I called you about the president and attacking Iran, and I leaned on you for that. I said it in my weekly news wrap, and I said, I said, is he going to go after them for shooting down a drone? And you said, no, he's not going to start a war for shooting down a drone. Sure enough, he had aircraft in the air, and he admitted it. He actually confirmed the story, and he pulled it all back. You were right.
Well, yes, and if you look at it, everything that's involved, especially with past conflicts, shooting down an unmanned drone is bad, but it is not a reason to go into a war where thousands of people potentially are going to be killed, including Americans. We're not sure if that was intentionally shot down or it was just some nutty Hezbollah guy deciding to fire on the drone. That's what the president mentioned there. So, no, that's not a reason to go to war.
Now the Iranians are out saying we could have shot down a plane with 35 people on it.
If they do that, they
didn't. Changed. They were very careful in this whole thing with the oil tankers and the drone. Very careful. There's no loss of life. I mean, somebody shot at 2 oil tankers, and nobody died.
Yeah, right.
I think one of them sunk, but nobody died. And then we had this drone. Nobody died.
Right. They're doing this to protest the sanctions. I think they've come out and called them financial terrorism and other things like that.
Well, it's wrecking their country. I mean,
it is, and they're doing this to try to provoke the U.S. back to the bargaining table, especially with their nuclear program. The second that they kill an American or one of our allies, things change. But I think Trump made exactly the right decision. a brilliant decision not to let this escalate, but just keep going on, and hoping that something more worse doesn't happen. And that was a brilliant move on his part. He's got advisors on both sides for war and for not war, and I think he took them both into account and made his own decision, which he always does. That no, this is no reason to go to war.
You hear about Bolton, but he came out and said, I like the extremes. I want to hear both. I want to hear it all.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm going to make the decision. So people are like, John Bolton's running he's not really running you can say what you want about him. He's got a storied career. He's got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
He's a war hawk, though.
Yeah, he's a war hawk.
But Trump said, I like to hear the extremes, and he certainly is the extreme on one side.
Yep.
So you're thinking that this is actually a brilliant move. I mean, their ratings must have been sweating bullets.
Yeah.
They were going to have hell rain down on their head.
Yeah, they've got to be surprised by this. I have to tell you that their strategists probably figured out that Trump was not going to start a war over this. That's why they shot down an unmanned drone. That's why they did it. If they thought it would have provoked war, for example, if they shot down a jetliner with Americans or innocent people on it, that would be war.
They almost got their war. I mean, that's the scary part.
Yeah.
Because and how he's confirming, I had planes in the air. I brought them back.
Yeah,
whoops!
Ready to pull the switch.
Could you imagine the Iranians the other day say, "Hey, I thought you said he wouldn't order an attack."
Well, yeah, and that's another brilliant move because Trump made it clear we had bombers in the air ready to attack, and that's like saying back to the Ayatollahs, don't try to fake us out. Don't try to mess with us, and don't try to increase the pressure because we got bombers around you right now. And that was a message saying, back off. It's not smart to continue this.
Yeah, Diego Garcia, we could send B2 or stealth or B-52s or we got all kinds of assets around there. I don't want war. I do not want war. When people say, "Oh, you're a war hawk," I'm not. I'm happy it's not going to happen. The economy. Do you think? I'm just going to bring this last thing up. I'm just shooting this out to you. Gold's flirting with $1,400 an ounce. They're talking about cutting rates. I know you're in the CIA, the company. You know a lot about a lot of things. How's the economy looking for you? I mean, they're wanting rates to, what did Judy Shelton say? I want rates to zero. I mean, how's it looking?
Well, it's the really serious concern, at least of mine, is that the Federal Reserve is calling all these shots. And it's not federal, and it has no reserves. It's made up of foreign banks that sit on the board, secret. Their identities are secret. They engage in secret meetings, and they're behind these interest rates. They can change and have been changing these interest rates essentially to suit their own goals, not the goals of the American people. It's not a U.S. government institution. So you can watch them carefully with their interest, what they do with interest rates. Dropping the interest rates like this and printing in their quantitative easing fake monopoly money is serious because it's expanding our national debt to 22 trillion plus right now. That's our problem. That is the thing that could topple our economy. And in addition to that, what you're not hearing on a lot of media programs is Russia and China just entered an official agreement to stop recognizing the U.S. dollar as the world currency and start using the yuan instead. They've already started making transactions using that instead of the U.S. dollar. If the U.S. dollar is no longer recognized as the world currency, our economy could go into a collapse, and the value of the dollar could plummet.
Oh boy, tell you what, Kevin Shipp, I hope you come back, and I hope you become a regular. I'd love to have you on maybe a monthly basis for our own security briefing. I mean, you're a decorated CIA officer that you protected the head of the CIA. I'm just glossing over. You got a big, long resume. I'm sorry. I'm just glossing over. You're a counterintelligence expert. You're a certification expert. You're expert. You're expert in a lot of places. So I hope you can come back and shed some light on things for us. Kevin Shipp, the book, and there'll be a link for the book. This is a great book. It's as relevant as it was when it came out 5-6 years ago from the Company of Shadows. It's an eye opener. You want to know what's going on, and it's you get your money's worth out of this book. You want to know what's going on in terms of what the secret government does, the cabal, the deep state, the shadow government, whatever you want. You want to read this book. You also have your Patreon account. You're going to give me a link for that. I'll put the link in there so people can sign up for it. It's what, $1? It's $1. It's $1.
It's $1 to join, and the reason I do that is to keep YouTube from manipulating my programs.
Yeah, and then you lost your pension. You're a patriot. Yeah. You're a patriot. You care about the country. You've risked a lot. You and your family and your wife. So thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg. It's a pleasure.